Welcome, viewers. Now, the whole of India is probably waiting for the election results from Bihar. This is one of the most important elections because this is taking place after the COVID, after the lockdown, and many factors have changed between the last elections held and the present elections. There are even doubts that whether elections could actually be held. But due to the good efforts of the Election Commission, Bihar could go to polls, and now what is most important is what would be the outcome. Now, when I earlier said that there are a lot of things that have changed, lockdown has resulted, the COVID, the lockdown, the economic crisis, lifestyle, all these factors have changed. We are entering, or we have entered into an election phase where things are totally different. So Bihar will be the first experiment in India to show the mood of the people. It will also reflect on other states, if not across India, at least in the Hindi heartland, which is most important for power in Delhi. A lot of things have changed, as I said before. But now, let us look at the exit polls. The exit polls have clearly indicated that the Mahagathbandhan, comprising mainly of RJD and the Congress and smaller alliance, are way ahead of the JDU-BJP combined. Many of the results from the exit polls show that the Mahagathbandhan is getting anything between 121 to about 125 seats in the 243 member assembly, where the halfway mark is 122. So either the Mahagathbandhan is nearing the halfway mark or may cross the halfway mark. It is only Chanakya, which has predicted that Mahagathbandhan will get as many as 180 seats. Whereas the JDU BJP combined is trailing behind with just about 116 seats, 91 to about 115 to 116, but clearly nowhere near the halfway mark. So the sum and substance is that the exit polls have shown that the double engine, which is a reference to Narendra Modi in the center and Nitish in Bihar, is clearly going to be derailed by the RJD Congress combined, led by the young and dynamic Tejasvi Yadav. So exit polls, if it stands, then probably we are going to see a change in Bihar. So what went wrong for this double engine? That is, what went wrong for Narendra Modi in the center and Nitish in Patna? Now, you see, before that I'll come across, though the exit polls say that it is a clear advantage for the RJD combined, but this election is totally different from what happened last time. For example, in 2015, all the parties were, aligned to one alliance or the other. There were no breakaways. But in this election, you have breakaways. In 2015, you had the BJP, the LJP, that is Ramvilas Paswan's LJP, and Hindustani Awami Morcha on one side, and you had JDU, the RJD, and the Congress on the other. Of course, in between, Nitish broke away from the alliance and then allied himself with the BJP. So there were clear indications that it is fight between one alliance and the other. Now here, also you have two major alliances, but there are three small parties which can play a major role. This is Chirag Paswan's Lok Janashakti Party. You have the Kushwa's Rashtriya Lok Samta Party and Papu Yadav's Jan Andolan Party. Now these are all small but very significant players. Now what is significant about them is that in the 2015 elections, if you analyze, in almost about 52 of the 243 seats, the margin of difference between the winner and the loser was just about 1,000 to 3,000 votes. So if these small parties, for example, Chirag Paswan's party, Kushwa's party, and Papu Yadav's party are able to bridge this gap of 1,000 and take away a few seats, then if the RJD combined comes closer to 150, to 120, 121 seats, then probably they'll have to have an alliance with one of these two partners, or probably these partners may completely upset the elections. That we'll have to wait for the results. But this is for the first time that you have these small splinter parties playing a major role in the elections, unlike what happened in 2015. So, assuming that the RJD is going to come to power, what went wrong with Nitish Kumar? What went wrong with Narendra Modi's agenda and the double engine? What happened? Why did it not pull across? There's one factor that you have to see, that while the double engine actually post-lockdown didn't move in the same direction. That's because, a lot of things got derailed in Bihar because Narendra Modi had his own agenda of lockdown, the economic shambles, which had a reflection in Patna too, in Bihar too. Now, if you look at the first 5 years of Nitish Kumar, it was a wonderful era. He ended the Jungle Raj of Lalu Prasad Yadav. He brought in a lot of development agenda. The roads were built, bridges were built. You had uninterrupted power supply. Then he focused on education. Then he focused on public safety. All these things were part of his development bundle or development package. So the people just loved him. But then at the end, the last few years, Nitish Kumar completely got stuck. The only thing he did was he introduced prohibition. That's the only factor that he did. But then from development, what happened was he got stuck in politics and he got slowed down. So this has deeply affected his performance. People still appreciate him for the development. People still appreciate him for what happened, in the first 5 years. But mind you, as I said earlier, things have changed. Now it is not just development that is important in Bihar and also across the nation, but unemployment. Triggered by what? Triggered by the lockdown and the COVID crisis. So unemployment has come across as the biggest factor in this election. Added to that, you had migrants coming across from all over India to Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, and actually Bihar had to take a real big body blow of accepting these migrants. And there also, Nitish Kumar played, he didn't initially react well with the migrant crisis. So unemployment has come to the fore, and it is here that the young Tejasvi Yadav played a master stroke in promising employment to the youth of Bihar. And this is going to make a difference. This difference will also be reflected in Delhi, to which I shall come across later. Not just unemployment. There is another factor also that is in play in Bihar. Like all over India, Bihar has a very, very young population who will be voting. Now, these youngsters no longer, care for caste. Usually what happens in Bihar is the caste factor will play a major role in the outcome of the elections. The Yadavs would vote for the RJD, the upper caste would vote for the BJP, the lower caste, the extremely backward extremely backward people, and the OBCs would vote for Nitish Kumar. The Muslims will solidly vote for the Congress. So this is how the factors played in the previous elections. But in this particular elections, people are ready to forget caste and probably vote across caste lines, mainly on the agenda at hand, that is employment. And the young crowd in Bihar is willing to experiment. I think they have a sort of fatigue in seeing Nitish Kumar for so long in power. The anti-incumbency factor will play a major role. And what happens is, this young crowd, like all other youngsters across India or across the world, they are willing to experiment. So when they see the young Tejasvi Yadav of the RJD, very vibrant and promising a lot of things, the question in their mind is, why not give him also a chance? Why not give him another 5 years to see what he's going to do in Bihar? Though Nitish Kumar and Narendra Modi have said that it is going to be back to Jungle Raj, probably the crowd is not willing to buy that argument. They would be willing to experiment with Tejasvi Yadav. They will be willing to see whether he's going to really prove to be a leader that he's emerging as. And the biggest factor in his favor is that he is young. He is 31 years old against Nitish Kumar, who is more than double his age, who is nearing 70. So 31 against 70, and the population is young. So naturally, people would probably willing to have a change in Bihar and go with Tejasvi Yadav. So what is the lesson that Bihar will be sending across to New Delhi? What would be the lesson that Narendra Modi will have to learn from these elections? Now, like Nitish, Narendra Modi has also been focusing on development agenda across the nation. Now probably time has come for him to change. Of course, time is already gone. He should have changed long ago. Time has come for a change in the sense that focus is going to be just not on development. If you're saying that you have provided electricity, you have provided free gas, you have provided ration, you have provided this, you have provided that, people will say, okay. But then, what they need now is employment, especially since the economy is shattered. Now, the economy has been shattered mainly due to the factors contributed by the center, more so Narendra Modi. For example, the huge lockdown, unscientific 40-day lockdown across India has shattered India's economy. People have said that this is going to be a big body blow. And with the demonetization and the GST, the employment levels had further gone down earlier itself. Now with this lockdown, there is a lot of unemployment, there's a lot of misery across India. How will Narendra Modi mitigate this misery? How will he generate employment is something that probably the BJP will have to think. Because if Bihar sends this message that development alone will not work and employment is a big factor, then probably you will have to change your agenda or you will have to do something very fast. Even in Bihar's case, there was double-digit growth in the first few years, but in the last few years or few months, the growth came down very drastically, and this was felt by people. So that is one of the major lessons that the Bihar elections would give to New Delhi. But unlike Bihar, there is one factor that is different. In Bihar, you have a face to counter Nitish Kumar. There is Tejasvi Yadav who can counter Nitish Kumar. But in New Delhi, there is absolutely no face who can counter Modi. So that is the advantage for the BJP and for Narendra Modi. He is a single factor in Delhi. Probably that is something that probably will play to the advantage of BJP, but that cannot be dependent because, as I said earlier, the young population is willing to experiment. And the Congress will have to learn its lessons in the fact that Congress will have to play second fiddle with regional parties across India. So these are the two major messages that will be coming from Bihar, and all the parties will have to sit across and probably think what exactly is the road ahead, what is to be done, and Bihar will give an important lesson so far as the political agenda of future is concerned. So let us all look towards Bihar. Let us see how whether the exit polls are right. And let us see what are the earthquakes and the ripples or the aftershocks that would come across India. Till then, goodbye.